Hello, and welcome to Guyana News Updates, your go-to source for the latest happenings across Guyana. We provide timely and insightful news, ensuring you stay informed about crucial developments impacting our nation. Recently, Guyana's judiciary saw significant temporary appointments, reflecting the administration's commitment to justice and the rule of law. On August 4, 2025, Justice Roxanne George was sworn in as the acting Chancellor of the Judiciary, while Justice Navindra Singh began performing the duties of Chief Justice. These appointments were made by President Dr. Irfan Ali to maintain continuity and ensure the efficient functioning of the judiciary in these key offices. Justice George was notably the country's longest-serving acting Chief Justice since 2017 prior to this role. It's important to highlight the broader context surrounding these appointments. Guyana's top judicial posts, the Chancellor and Chief Justice, have remained substantively vacant for nearly 2 decades. This long-standing issue arises from a constitutional requirement for agreement between the President and the leader of the opposition, a consensus that successive leaders have failed to achieve, resulting in repeated collapses of efforts to break the deadlock. These acting appointments are essential to ensure judicial operations continue seamlessly despite these persistent challenges. For more in-depth analyses and breaking news from Guyana, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update from Guyana News Updates.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking into something, pretty fascinating actually. It's about how judicial systems handle leadership challenges. And we're zooming in on Guyana specifically. There's been a recent development, some new appointments. These aren't just about filling spots, though. They actually highlight some really long-standing constitutional issues. So our mission here is to unpack these appointments. Why now? What's the detail? And then pull back to see the bigger picture of judicial leadership there based on the source material we have.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is how these seemingly straightforward temporary moves, they kind of pull back the curtain on this huge gap. We're talking nearly 20 years where the top judicial posts haven't been substantively filled. It really shows how sometimes these stopgap measures tell you a lot about deeper structural things.
That's a really good way to put it. Okay, so let's start with the immediate news then. What exactly happened on August 4th, 2025?
Right. So the main event is Justice Roxanne George being sworn in as acting Chancellor of the Judiciary. And at the same time, Justice Navindra Singh is performing the duties of Chief Justice. This just happened on Monday. They both took the oath of office before President Dr. Irfan Ali.
Okay. And what prompted this right now? Was there a specific trigger?
Yes, there was. It happened because the current acting chancellor, Justice Yonette Cummings-Edwards, she went on leave. So essentially, these new appointments are temporary. They're there to keep things running smoothly while she's away. It's about continuity.
Right, maintaining the flow.
Yeah.
Did President Ali say anything publicly about the reasoning beyond just filling that temporary gap?
He did. The Office of the President put out a statement. It said the appointments were made, and I'm quoting loosely here, in the interest of maintaining continuity and ensuring the efficient functioning of the judiciary, specifically for the Chancellor and Chief Justice roles. And President Ali also added that filling this temporary absence shows the government's commitment to justice, fairness, rule of law. The principles he called essential for the country's democracy.
Interesting framing. And Justice Roxanne George stepping into this acting chancellor role. She's quite a prominent figure already, isn't she?
Oh, absolutely. Very experienced. What's quite notable here is that she was already the country's longest-serving acting Chief Justice. She'd been in that role since 2017. So now, with Justice Cummings-Edwards away, she's also stepping up to function as Chancellor. That's the head of the Court of Appeal, the very top judicial role. It shows a kind of progression, definitely, but still, crucially, within these acting capacities.
Okay, so we have this immediate situation covering leave, ensuring continuity, a familiar face moving up temporarily. But you mentioned something much bigger earlier. This is where it gets really unusual, right? The fact that these top jobs haven't been properly filled for how long?
That's the core issue, and it's kind of staggering. We're talking nearly 2 decades. For almost 20 years, Guyana's top judicial positions, the Chancellor and the Chief Justice, have remained substantively vacant. They've only had acting appointments. It just immediately makes you wonder, how does a country even operate like that, with the highest judicial offices in this kind of long-term limbo?
2 decades. Wow. That's a long time for such critical roles.
Yeah.
What's the roadblock? Why hasn't anyone been appointed substantively? Is it something in the Constitution?
It is, yes. That's exactly where the problem lies. The Guyanese Constitution has a specific requirement. For someone to be appointed substantively as Chancellor or Chief Justice, the president and the leader of the opposition have to agree. They need consensus. And the frustrating reality is that successive leaders over these nearly 20 years across different governments just haven't been able to reach that agreement. There have been attempts, consultations, but they've always seemed to collapse. So this constitutional requirement for political agreement has created this long-term deadlock. And that's the backdrop for why we keep seeing these acting appointments, like the ones this week. They're patching over a much deeper issue.
Right, so the temporary fix highlights the long-term problem caused by this need for political consensus. Thinking about our listeners, what can we kind of learn from this Guyanese example? What does it tell us more broadly about governance or judicial systems? Why should someone listening care about this specific situation?
Well, I think it's a really potent case study. It shows, first, just how complex constitutional designs can be, especially when they tie crucial appointments to political agreement. It really highlights the challenge of achieving that consensus, even on something seemingly fundamental, like appointing top judges. And for you, listening, it sort of illustrates how countries find ways to keep critical functions going, like the judiciary, even when facing these significant, long-running structural blockages. Makes you think about, stability, the rule of law. What happens when key institutions operate in this kind of acting state for so long?
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. We've seen how these recent temporary appointments in Guyana are, on one level, just about keeping the judiciary running smoothly while the acting chancellor is on leave. But digging deeper, they shine a bright light on this, frankly, quite shocking situation. Nearly 20 years without substantive leaders in the country's highest judicial posts. And the root cause seems to be this constitutional requirement for political agreement that just hasn't been met.
Exactly. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most routine-seeming administrative actions, like these temporary appointments, can actually open a window onto really profound, long-standing structural challenges. It tells us a lot about the specific constitutional framework in Guyana and the difficulties in making it work as intended.
Definitely. Which leaves us, and you, with maybe a final thought to chew on. What really are the long-term consequences when a country's judiciary operates for almost 2 decades, with only acting officials at the very top? How might that affect public confidence? Or the perception of judicial independence, both at home and internationally? Something to consider as you think about how different systems work, or sometimes struggle to uphold justice and the rule of law.
That concludes our overview of the significant developments within Guyana's judiciary, including the recent swearing-in of Justice Roxanne George as the acting chancellor and Justice Navinder Singh as the acting chief justice. These appointments, made by President Dr. Irfan Ali, aim to maintain continuity and ensure the efficient functioning of the judiciary, which is particularly important given that Guyana's top judicial posts have remained substantively vacant for nearly 2 decades. At Guyana News Updates, we are dedicated to providing you with timely and insightful news, keeping you informed about the crucial developments impacting our nation. For more in-depth analyses and breaking news from Guyana, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update from Guyana News Updates. Stay tuned for more essential news and analyses right here on our channel.